Okay, so in this tutorial we're just going to run through the use of the Blender BlendME plugin for doing a very simple qualitative solar shading analysis using accurate sun position calculations. So I'm going to start up Blender and go to User Preferences, Add-ons, Architecture, and start up the plugin just like I have in the previous tutorial. Now we'll start making this small box here into an L-shaped north-facing kind of zone. So I'll make it 2.4 tall and center it in 1.2. And now I'm just going to use Blender's extrude and grab features in face select mode just to extrude out some zones. And there we go. There's one zone. Okay, I'll just extrude and grab that out in the extraction there a bit, and I'll just grab these faces there. So there we go. So it's we're starting to get an L-shaped looking zone. It might be a little bit fat there. Okay. We might want to put some eaves over this. So I can just extrude out some eaves in the X direction here. I'll just make them short for this example tutorial so we get some interesting results, I suppose. Now, as you can see, once you become familiar with the use of Blender, I believe, based on my experience, that it's competitive with SketchUp in terms of the speed required to model. It does have a very steep learning curve at the beginning. So I'm going to add some windows in to these areas, and I'm just doing some shortcuts here to just make these faces here windows. And the way I'll make them windows, as you'll see in later tutorials, they need to be separate objects in Blender in order to be able to actually assign hierarchical data structures and whatnot. So there we go, separate windows. Now what I might just do is add some eaves over this southern window. So I can grab these edges and I can extrude them out in the X direction, and I'll just make it short again. And what I might want to do is add some vertical shading elements, so I'll just duplicate that face there, bring it out, make it a new object. I'll grab it, I'll rotate it around the X-axis 90 degrees. Oops, what have I done there? I should probably actually undo that and actually first of all bring the origin to the geometry, and there I'll rotate it 90 degrees. Okay, now I can actually use snap to bring that object over close to the window. Now that window, actually we should be a bit easier if we could actually see that it was some other material. So what I might just do is add a different material here, call it window, and assign a bit of a different color to it, a bit of a blue tinge, add some transparency here, just bring the alpha down, and turn on transparency in its object properties. There we go. So now back to our vertical shading element. Here I can tab into it, I can select the top edge, and with snap mode on, and grab it in the Z direction and bring it up just like that. Now I've got a vertical shading element which I can duplicate and just copy along. Oops. There we go. Okay. Alright, so there's our very basic zone. What I might just do now is rotate it in the Z direction. North facing is positive y-axis. That's the north direction for BlendME by default. You can rotate the side if you like, but I just keep it normally unrotated, the side. There's our centered building now. Now I can actually just fly through and make sure. Sometimes on more complicated projects you just want to do a little fly through, getting a feel for it. The video is a little bit jumpy because my laptop is very old, as you can see up in the top right. My processor is crunching away full ball, but that's because I'm recording screenshots as I'm going, and I'm on a very old laptop, to be honest. Okay, so now we might want to do a very simple analysis of how the sun moves over this. So we're going to use the plugin, and here's our settings. I like to move the plugin menu to the top because I use it a lot. And what I'll do is I'll add a lamp sun. Grab that in the Z direction just to move it up. I'll turn snap off. And there's a sun. Now using that we can set the month of the year to make it interesting. I'll make it our winter down here in the southern hemisphere, July. I'll get 10 time steps per hour, and I'll just calculate the solar path for that. And you can see here, using Blender's animation features, as everything is animatable in Blender, we can actually have a time motion of the sun throughout the winter. There we go. Obviously this sun calculation is dependent upon the latitude and the longitude, and whatever. So this location here is Perth, Western Australia, which is where we reside. And I'll just call this my test building. Okay, so here's our sun path for winter. Now that could be useful for getting sun's rays and angles for different times of the year, but actually, and it's coming from, it's a little bit hard to see where that ray is coming down on the building, especially as it's centered on the origin. In reality, obviously the sun's rays are always parallel, so they can come. You can move the sun around, but what sometimes is a little bit more useful to do is to use Blender's features, and we can add a camera there, and actually using in the object menu I can parent that to the sun, and there we go, it's up there now attached. So when the sun moves, the camera moves with it. There we are. Now what's useful with that is I can now go to View Cameras, Active Camera, and I now can move, although that still isn't very useful because we're in perspective mode. So you might want to go to the cameras, turn on orthographic mode, turn off the pass out, and here we go, we have an orthographic projection from the sun for the month of July the 1st in Western Australia, Perth, Western Australia. And you can see here my eaves, because they're very short, they aren't doing much in the winter time, which is probably a good thing because you want some solar gain. And there's my southern shading elements just as the sun goes down. Now we might want to see what happens to this in the summer. So we can select the sun, go back to the menu, and I can change this back to the month of January the 1st. And again, we'll calculate the solar path for that. And here, this will be about sunrise. Sun comes up, over. My shading elements are pretty short, so that the windows are copying a bit of gain during the middle of the day, because my eaves are quite short. And, oh dear, my southern elements are doing pretty much nothing in the afternoon. This is a very useful tool for just qualitative analysis, just sort of getting an idea of how the sun's coming in, how much exposed area there is to the sun at different times of day for different times of the year. But as you'll see later, we can do actual energy analyses to get the actual quantitative estimates for the amount of solar gain through the various elements for different times of the day and different times of the year. And we'll also move on in future tutorials to CFD analysis. Alright, thanks very much.